doing?
Me too.
You exercising?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's too fast.
She walk?
Yeah, she walks everywhere. Ooh, Nicole, what are you doing?
Seeing the light.
Oh,
Seeing light.
no, don't see any light today. Stay away from the light.
What is it gonna do?
Nicole, think what you just said.
What is light gonna give me?
The light. The light at the tunnel. Stay away from the light. You don't know that expression
No.
or what the light is. Hi guys. Okay, so by now you've figured out we have a new format on this channel, and I think I'm going to keep it at this format. It's going to work out much nicer because I have so many pictures I'm working on and I want to share so much with you. Doing segments is much more interesting than me just sitting there and coloring the entire time. You won't be missing any of the good information that I want to give to you, so don't worry about that. That doesn't change, but I don't think anybody else does a coloring vlog. This was the picture that I'm working on with Misty, and what am I doing right now? So I'm gonna let you follow along for this entire picture. This picture is gonna take me a very long time to do. Everything will be left in the description from now on. Any coloring books, any supplies you need will all be in the description. And that's where you're gonna be able to get all of that type of information. So I got this from the Secret Coloring Club, Yuri. I went through that whole video, my last video about it, and how much I loved what his club did for me and my dog. So now I'm going to start working on this dog. I'm going to take you from the beginning. Things that you don't see that artists do, because they don't do it in front of the camera. It's all the prep work. And now, right now, I am working on the prep work for this picture. I'm going to attempt to do this, and I'm saying attempt. I'm going to attempt to do this in hyper real style. It's not going to be in coloring book style. I do have coloring book style on a different picture on this by Elena Lazareva on this vlog too. So this is in hyper realism, and it's much different style of pencil. Now what on earth am I doing? Okay, so I've made several copies. Now I talked about it in my last video that I may change it over to a linen paper, and I made a copy of the dog. I made it slightly darker because I wasn't sure how the ink was going to react on the linen, and it reacted really nice. When I went to go start strokes on the paper, I realized this is going to be not what I really wanted. So I'm not going to be doing it on this paper anyway now. But as you can see, it's very, very toothed. And while I want a lot of tooth, I don't want pattern tooth. And this paper has a little bit more of a pattern. It is a watercolor paper. And some artists do color on watercolor paper because it has such a good tooth. But For this, I want it a little bit smoother because I'm doing the dog fur. And when I started doing strokes for the dog fur, they came out very thick. So for the style, I really didn't want this paper. So I'm glad I did a test run on it to begin with. So that, let's put on the side. We don't even have to look at it. Now this is my practice paper. I have two other copies. One is done very lightly, and then another copy that's done dark. And what I'm doing is, right now, I am figuring out my patterns and shades. And what I'm doing on here is I'm looking at where the color changes are. So over here, we have the color changes going over here. The artist that did the sketch for me did a fantastic job. There's very little that I've been changing. They really did this sketch lifelike, and now I could see why it definitely looks like my dog Misty. So I'm just going through some of the shapes, and you can see some of the shapes over here match up with the shape over here, and I'm just drawing it out so that when I go to my regular piece of paper, since it's so light, it'll be easier to follow. And I will be looking at my real picture, my work picture, and then the real picture. So what I'm going to do is also test colors on here. What goes on here is not necessarily what's going to go on the other picture. It's going to be just practice. By the time I'm done with this picture, it's going to be practically done, but it's going to look like a complete disaster. So what exactly am I doing? I'm using a bright pink right now for this because I want it to be able to stand out. So it gives me a warning of where on the paper in case I sort of get a little bit lost. Now, with coloring, in a coloring book, you're coloring large areas, and you're basically doing long strokes to cover thicker areas. When I'm doing a hyper-realistic picture, I'm going to be putting in my darks, my lights, and then doing fur over it. I'm going to be working in much smaller areas. It's going to be different. What I'm doing here is I'm just going over and see, well, right there is where the hair changes from white to brown, and it follows up towards the eye. Doesn't have to be perfect, but at least I have an idea. And then it changes over here. I'm going to get the shape in on the eye over here as the pattern changed on her face. Over here, the lines, because when you're doing something that's identical, this is a little bit different. Even a hair at a place, if it's not in the right place, it's not going to look like that dog. Hyperrealism, when you're doing a portrait, has to look exactly like the picture. When artists do this, there are many, many ways that they can do this. Now, since I already have the sketch, and you can see that the dog here is much closer up in the picture than it is over here, although it's an identical replica. So that kind of scratches out what they call the grid method, because if they were the same size, if they had given me like, if the artist had light boxed instead of enhanced or made it larger, I would have been able to do something called the grid system on it. I'm going to probably end up putting a grid on this just so that my eye can stay. If I'm working over here, I can look and there'll be a little box over here. If I was doing a 1-to-1 ratio, this one and this one, I'd actually put a grid on here and just match up my grids and work in little squares. So that method really is not going to work with this picture. So I'm going to just eyeball it the best I can, and that's why I'm doing a mapping, which is another way that artists do pictures. They map out where the color changes are, and that's the method I've chosen to do. I hope you are understanding up till now. The sketching should take just as much time to do as the regular picture, getting the pencil on it. Since they have already provided me the sketch, I am that much ahead of the game. And so I'm going to just continue to work on this, going in to see where the color changes are. Now, they put in a little bit of fur where there wasn't fur, but it's not that bad. Like over here, I probably would have just rather have had it blank, but it doesn't matter. I can cover that up. I will make this look realistic. So that's where I'm up to on this picture. I love when I come out here and Puff is sitting on a new piece of furniture. That's a bed that my father made for him. Getting a windstorm. We just got back from shopping My husband is going to be cooking his amazing cod. And what's really cool is he makes his own tartar sauce, and I will give you the recipe. I've already taken Puff inside. He doesn't like the wind. Even though he doesn't get flown in his cage, he doesn't like the sound and he gets agitated.